Well,
Hey.
good afternoon. Glad to be back. Glad to be back. We're busy time. Walton County Sheriff Mike Adkinson, along with our trusty PIOs, Miss Lindsay Darby and Miss Corey DeBridnia. We got to get a camera up for you ladies so y'all can,
we don't need to see
they make
us.
hand motions sometimes that may not be appropriate for all viewers.
The facial expressions.
Yeah, Walton County Sheriff Mike Adkinson, Sheriff Live. So let's start with our basic. Where's Walton County, Florida? It is halfway between Pensacola and Tallahassee. We run from the Alabama line to the coast, about 1,200 square miles. The Walton County Sheriff's Office is a full-service law enforcement agency. Actually, we're a full-service public safety agency because we encompass fire rescue north of the Chattahoochee Bay. So handle ambulances and fires. We handle detention. We are the jail. We're also animal control for the entire county, as well as your traditional law enforcement and all communications. And listen, if you're new to this show, if you will, you don't know, this is a busy time to be in Walton County. So we are hustling. We've had a lot of stuff going on and a lot of different interests. We will, like always, we will try and answer any question you have. I don't guarantee that I know the right answer. I guarantee generally that we can find an answer, and it's funny because people always say, well, Sheriff, how do you not know this? And I say, well, it's pretty easy because Florida statutes about to hit this many books, and then Florida Administrative Code and the Florida Traffic Code. So sometimes, shockingly, I get this stuff wrong. So we have to look it up. But again, really super busy. We're in the heart of basically our last big week of spring break here. Tens of thousands. We're probably at a daily population bumping 280,000 people right now. So we are busy. And we'll answer any questions you have to the best of our ability and maybe go over some things of local interest, if you will. So
Sure. And there was a few things we wanted to talk about. Let's get to our first couple of comments first. Yolanda Decker says, Happy Easter, waiting all day for this.
Amen.
Tanya wants to know why we don't have a low-cost spay and neuter program in Walton County.
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. But see, I told you I was going to say I don't know on some things, but I'll be more than happy to find out.
Yeah.
But I'm betting trusty Captain Angie Hogaboom is close by with an answer waiting at the keyboard. You stumped me right out the go. Out the go.
Yeah. Deborah Lee McCormick just says hello. She's watching. James Rothschild says, keep up the great work. Cheyenne Davis is asking what happened to the little boy in the wreck on Highway 90 last week, if you know. I'm actually not familiar with it.
Off the top of my head, it's not ringing a bell to me.
Okay.
By the way, that's probably a good thing.
2-year-old, or 2-year-old, yes, that Chief Pugh worked, I know.
Okay.
I'm not sure the status of it.
Yeah, I don't want to. I just don't want to comment because I'm not 100% sure how that young man's doing.
Cheyenne, we'll make sure we reach out and get an update, and we'll comment back on here. Debbie Massey is asking, what are we doing to discourage people from racing on 98? I know one of our deputies actually pulled 2 cars over racing the other day.
To be honest with you, we are stopping people like it's for free, and I don't know how they're racing. If I got to be honest, these people are idiots because that's a technical term. Because it's really, 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 really heavy traffic on 98, right? Obviously. But we are lighting people up. It's a couple of thousand traffic stops.
2,500.
2,500 traffic stops
in the last 2 months.
Yeah, give or take, last 6 weeks. So yes, there is. If you've driven in particularly South County, and you haven't seen a deputy sheriff, you are not looking because they are everywhere. I mandatory overtime. I made it mandatory for everybody in the organization to work. There are people working. There are some nights we're having between off-duty details and people upwards of 65, 70 people working. That means people are working continuous shifts, canceled days off, coming in, trying to help manage this. So, yeah, it's a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
But go back to the traffic. We have a full-time traffic unit as well, too. We're actually going to ask some help with the TDC to fund more traffic units this year because we've seen a real value in that. We've had a reduction in loss of life last year that we can attribute to a lot of this enforcement. So we want to do more of that.
Yeah. We did get a couple of compliments about the deputy being at Business 331 and 331 South.
Yes.
Why did you feel the need to put a deputy there full time?
So listen, get full credit that your county commissioners there asked us if we could do that. They were going to hire out of their budget and say, look, can you put somebody there? I said, listen, we'll try to manage that right now to the best of our ability. DOT is looking at putting a light there. I don't know what the time frame is, but certainly during this heavy month, Commissioner Glywell had brought it up and McCormick, and I think everybody kind of agreed if we can do this right now, we're going to try and do it for a little bit. You know, and it's funny because a lot of people like that, and then people are calling mad. There's people mad. I know, shockingly.
Yeah. Okay. The next question is from Brittany Jones.
Okay.
Is there any way to place mirror globes across the street on Mac Bayou so that us hospital workers can safely turn left onto Mac Bayou after our shift?
That is actually a really good idea, a version of that so that you can see.
She said traffic is always backed up and we can't see oncoming traffic.
Not only can you not see oncoming traffic coming out of that hospital, the delay people getting off that road, off Mac Bayou Road, is really significant going down to Driftwood through there. You know what? I haven't heard that asked before, but I tell you what I'm going to do. Brittany, right? It was Brittany?
Yes, Brittany.
So we're going to make a note for our district lieutenant, who is the district lieutenant down there is
Johnny Jordan.
And I'll get with Lieutenant Jordan. We'll reach out to the hospital. I had a meeting with them 2 weeks ago about some other stuff. That is actually a really good suggestion. So you get the gold star for the night. I definitely will take a look at that and see what we can do.
Yeah.
So, cool.
John Coover, did the governor sign open carry law into place?
He did. No, he did not. So I want to.
Open carry different than
open
constitutional.
Carry is a different thing.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. We're using about 4 different names for same things. Here's what
that and golf carts and low speed
Yeah,
vehicles.
God, it's trouble.
Retweet.
So let's talk about what was signed into law real quick. The phrase they're using is constitutional carry. What does that mean? It means July 1st, not until July 1st, but effective July 1st, you will no longer have to have a concealed weapon permit issued by the state of Florida to carry a firearm concealed if you meet the normal statutory requirements. What's that? You're 21 years of age, you're not a convicted felon, you're of sound mind, those kind of things. So, yes, the governor signed that, but the effective date is July 1st. So don't run out there and do it right now. I want to be clear, there is still going to be a concealed weapons permit program. And you say, well, why, if you don't need it in Florida? Because really a couple of reasons. But the biggest is probably travel between other states. So Florida does not have reciprocity with other states. In other words, just because it's open carry in Alabama, or in Florida, doesn't mean it is in wherever, Kentucky. I don't know. So a lot of people still want to maintain their concealed weapon class, their permit, so they can travel. So just keep in mind, just because it is that way in Florida doesn't mean it's that way in other states. So yes, effective July 1st, there will no longer be a need in and of itself to have a permit.
But we do encourage you to still take our basic
so the
and
basic
advanced
firearm class, we will offer the concealed weapons part of it, but we'll also a weapons familiarity. We think that's a really an important thing for you to do, just simply because a lot of people can be intimidated by it. They haven't handled it. And we also have an advanced shooting class to make you even more competent and capable. And we, listen, I routinely see people showing up and they bought hand cannons that don't even meet what they say their needs are. And I know you'll find this hard to believe, but sometimes the men are much, sometimes we think we know it all, and especially when it comes to guns, because we watched, Gunsmoke and Westerns as kids. And, we find that a lot of times our women make better shooters because they're willing to listen to some instruction and help them be better. But anyway, those classes are available. We encourage you to still do that. And if you want a concealed weapons permit, there really is a reason to have it if you're going to be traveling to other states. So it's just something to consider.
Yeah.
But it's not open carry. So you got to be clear about that. That is not open carry.
Yeah. Brian Campbell, I have an idea. Schools and parents want police in schools. Would there be any way for schools to offer free lunches to police, first responders during school days? It would be a way to reach the community. We actually have SRDs in all our public schools.
So in Florida, you're required by law, as an aftermath of the murders at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, Florida mandates that there is a school resource deputy or a guardian in every, and I approved guardians here in Walton County. So every public school in Walton County has them.
Some have two.
Some have two, based on the size of the school. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are getting some requests from some private schools. We do it at a couple of private schools. They have to cover the cost. We charge them the same thing the school board pays. But we do this for a couple of private schools, Ohana and Gateway Academy.
Yeah.
And so after the thing in Nashville, we're starting to get some more requests, and we'll certainly look and make sure that financially we can do it, and we still have to be able to hire people. But yeah, we'll look at those.
Yeah. Okay. I'm looking at Lee Herring. How do we move forward with having a curfew during spring break for Seagrove, as is in place for Seaside and Rosemary? I think there's a misconception.
There's actually a really big misconception. A curfew, you cannot have a curfew unless it's countywide. The Board of County Commissioners cannot pass a curfew unless it's countywide. So there is no curfew in Walton County, a governmental curfew. And you cannot have it by sections. In other words, the Board of County Commissioners can't say, we want a curfew for South Walton. Can't do that. A curfew is a curfew is a curfew. They do it would apply to all the county. And so that's not what you have at Seaside. Basically, what you have at Seaside and a couple of places is private property can say who they want on their private property. And so they're saying, hey, at this time, after whatever it may be, just say it's 11:30, then if you're under the age of X, you need to not be on the property. But they could do that any time of day, 7 days a week. It's really just a private property. So back to your question, and it was Seagrove, right?
Yes.
Any private piece of property can do that. That is simply just a private property owner saying, I don't want somebody on my property at this point. So it is not a true curfew, I guess I'd say.
Okay. Joe Johnson wants to have an update on the golf cart traffic crash last night.
I think the lady involved in that was actually very lucky. She was not badly hurt, so that's a really good thing from that standpoint. I think the vehicle actually straddled her. I think what they were just telling me about 2 minutes before we went on air is that she's very lucky. She wasn't hurt badly.
Okay.
Fell off the back of the golf cart.
Yeah. Florida Highway Patrol.
By the way, before we say it, the golf cart was legal to be on the roadway.
So it was a low-speed vehicle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a low-speed vehicle. Did I say golf cart?
You did.
I'm sorry. Me making the same mistake I'm getting on everybody else about.
Florida Highway Patrol worked that crash, so they would have an update on any charges or what the cause was, the investigation, all of that.
Sure.
Caroline Cam, I've got a picture of a vehicle racing in and out of lanes on Highway 98 from the Outlet Mall to Holiday Road about 2:00 in the morning. I took a picture of the car with a Georgia plate. What can be done about that?
So you would have to be willing to come and testify, because the deputy sheriff has to basically witness it themselves. However, there is a mechanism, if you're prepared to come to court and testify on behalf, that we could file for a citation. But keep in mind, one of the problems, we don't know who was driving the vehicle. So that's an issue. So it's very difficult to do something with just a picture after the fact, particularly if they're out of state.
Yeah. Mark Holmes, we still can't get a steady deputy at Dune Lakes at McDavis Loop. Can we make this a priority? These are children we're talking about. So so basically at Dune Lakes, what they've created is they have an in and an out. They have a deputy, Deputy Kendrick, who lets people into the school, but then,
absolutely.
And from time to time, Robert Adams, our community services
correct.
officer, is there directing people out of the school.
Yep, absolutely. So, one of the things we wanted to do there, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, is potentially is to hire part-time retirees to be, I'm saying crossing guards, for lack of a better way of saying it, right? Because you can't have, it gets to be extremely prohibited. You can't have two deputy sheriffs there, one at 98, one at the other letting traffic out, right? But I could definitely use a part-time, I think, parking crosswalk guard. You see that in a lot of towns, and we would like to look at trying to do that. It's super busy right now, and quite frankly, I don't know if many of you are facing this as well. People are not wanting to come to work. We are really facing a lack of applications in multiple disciplines. People are not wanting to come to work, and so we're struggling with that. But we are hiring in every aspect of our organization right now. But I think you just if you heard me start this, which was everybody we have is on mandatory overtime right now. Everybody is working. Every deputy sheriff. We had mandatories in the jail. We just finished mandatories for our fire rescue. People are. If they got a green uniform, they're working right now. So that doesn't mean it's not important. It just means we got to get to it as quickly as we can. But I actually think crossing guards are a good idea. You know, we've talked about exploring that idea with our SRDs. So
Yeah. Meadows Falconberry, that is a great name, says, great job so far on spring break. We really appreciate your team. Julie Porterfield says the same thing. Appreciate you and
Julie.
your team does. Hi, Julie.
we appreciate what Julie and their folks do at the Children's Advocacy Center. You know, and every time I take the opportunity to say, look, if you want to know what noble work is, it's the Emerald Coast Children's Advocacy Center, right? And of course, Julie is the basically the founder of that organization, and just does really, listen, it's God's work. You're taking care of children, and it's important stuff. So we're glad to have you with us, Julie.
Yeah. And James Rothschild is asking if you need a weapons class in order to buy a gun.
No, you do not. Not in Florida.
Yeah. Sarah Solberg, great question. When will the new helicopter be up and officially ready to go?
Okay, so our helicopter. We are like a restaurant right now. We're in a soft opening. We're running through right now, so the helicopter is available for accidents right now. We have not rolled out a press release or anything like that at this point, just because we're trying to make sure we have our protocols, but we also want if somebody needed it so that it's available, right? Unfortunately, there was an air ambulance crash in Alabama earlier this week.
Lifesaver,
earlier this week. And so regionally, it was grounded for a day or two just to make sure there was no problems anywhere within a couple 100-mile radius. But we're actually up and running soft right now, so that's a good thing. Our bird is being painted. Actually, I think, is it through being painted?
No, it should be getting painted next week.
So it's about to be painted. We're about to get it here, but there is a helicopter. It's just not the one it doesn't say Walton County Air Rescue on it yet.
Yeah. Jesse Herring said, need to offer gun safety classes more often, not many a year. And of course, I'm sure there's demand. First of all, we have a lot of basic classes.
Yes.
But they take a break during the summer because it's so
hot.
stinking hot.
People don't want to come. There's a lot of demand, Mr. Chairman, but people actually don't sign up for it like you would think because of the heat.
Yeah.
And so, it's Florida, right? So, and we can't, there's no way we can run them right now. We're simply too busy right now. But the next, we'll do a couple more months and then we'll pick them up again in the fall.
Yeah. Karen Self is asking, can we lower the speed at the end of 1087 by Highway 90? Is 1087, I want to say that's a county road. Is 1087 a county road?
It's a county road.
Okay.
But the short answer is that's not a bad idea. The Board of County Commissioners has to do that. Yeah. So we will send that email over to those folks at Public Works and see what I don't know what they use to determine what the speed is there.
Yeah.
But, one of the things we found is we believe that TDC funds can be used countywide, right? And so we were wanting to put the traffic unit up around 83 and 1087 to slow down some of this oncoming, and 331, North 331, to slow them down there even before we get here and try and, again, speed kills.
For sure. Jordan Steele, is that a vanilla iced latte you're drinking?
It is so close. Actually, it might as well be. But it's an iced coffee with 8 pumps of sugar-free vanilla, heavy cream with a light touch of cinnamon. Oh. Just the way I like it.
So it's like a skinny iced vanilla latte.
It's fact,
sort
it's
of.
special.
Kathy Kisner, any suggestions considering the weather changing and the storms where someone living in a mobile home can go in advance of an impeding storm? We're told to get out or shelter, but go where? It's not safe to be in a vehicle on the road either.
Yeah, so we do have, Walton County will open shelters, and sometimes it's in the schools. A lot of times it's in the schools, depending where you're at. But we always try to get, the emergency management used to be on the sheriff's office, right? Mm-hmm. We still run an aspect of emergency management, then the county has an emergency management as well too, and they manage the shelters. But as soon as they tell us where the shelters are at, we will release that. We'll put that information out. But I will tell you that every time it gets to that kind of inclement weather, it's typically. Did she say she was south of the bay?
She didn't say.
Well, there are different locations throughout the county identified as shelters, and if the weather is that bad that they tell you to shelter, not shelter in place, they open shelters. So we will make sure that we take the information the county gives and try to get it out to you guys as well. That's a good opportunity to go to Walton Alerts. If you don't use Walton Alerts, the sheriff's
Notification
office
system.
Yeah, sheriff's notification system. That's a really good thing that you can use to sign up. You can get there on the website. Lindsay, is that right?
Yep, they can go under community programs, and there is a link, and it says Alert Walton.
Yeah, and alert Walton, and download that app, and then you will have a list of the shelters as fast as they're released. So that's a good app.
Yeah. Lee Herring says, thank you for what you folks do for property owners.
Trying.
Ryan Tector, why are private schools not mandated to provide security in Florida? Why is the state not being proactive? And he's asking specifically for private schools.
Yeah, no, because it's private. So, I mean, I'm not, that's not me being sarcastic. It's literally you can't spend public money on private property to provide that. And the argument there obviously that it's children, right? I mean, that makes sense to me, but they're already paying to go to those schools. So I think that's what the issue is. The way we're doing with Gateway and Ohana, they pay the same thing that the school district pays. So any private school that chooses to do that, if they reach out to me, I do everything in my power to honor that request. So, but I can't. Just to be clear, you can't mandate spending that money on private property. It's not whether I agree or disagree. It's just the law.
It would be like spending government money on a private business, subsidizing a private business. Okay. Kathy Polk Armstrong.
Because they're technically can be for profit.
Right. Kathy Polk Armstrong, thank you so much for your presence on Scenic Gulf Drive in Miramar Beach. For the first time in many years, spring break has been very peaceful. Highway 98, though, is still a train wreck with the speeding and cutting drivers off. I think we need a larger presence there.
Yeah, I literally have, just again, I agree we're trying to hire some more deputies, but I've got every person working. Nobody is they're not even getting their days off right now. We're making them come to work. So, but yes, I agree with you. We're in the process of trying to hire some more folks, and we'll look budgetarily next year where we're at to try and do it.
Yeah. John Newman says, you're doing a great job. I've never met you. I live in Texas, but I worked with Shadler and your dad offshore.
Yeah, so there's like one person in America, two people named Shadler, so my brother, obviously. That's good. Thank you for joining us tonight.
He said, I follow you. My son is now a state trooper in Texas. Keep up the great work.
Tell him to be safe.
Joanna says she's listening, and thank you for the updates.
Awesome.
Ollie Walker, we're so grateful for you and your department is doing, but is there anything that the county can do or pass to make spring break, particularly when Atlanta schools are here, less miserable for residents?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I was actually just talking, Commissioner Tony Anderson was talking to our patrol captain. We're just kind of talking about, we always look to try and be better, right? One of the things that I think we're going to do is we're going to ask the county to start picking up these bicycles on the right of way. Just get them up. If they've left them there, if they've abandoned them in the county right of way, I think you need to pick them up and take them. I'm not saying you're selling them or keeping them, but let's pick them up and get them out of the right of way. So that's I think that's a code enforcement function. So I'll approach the county and see about that. But I'm tempted to take a sheriff's office vehicle and just pick them up now. Take them down there and say, if you want to come get them, come get them. But we had a house on 30A that had, it had 100+ bicycles
Dumped on it
in front of it. And so we're like, hey, that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And that, the county sees it a little bit different. The county says, I think their position is, well, we don't have an ordinance that says that. And I said, well, there's a lot of things we don't have ordinances for, but you can't just dump your property in the middle of 30A. So
or on somebody else's property.
Yeah, on somebody else's property. So we're going to. I think the board's amenable to try and help us with that. So we're going to see. I think that's something that will help with that. The best thing that we did this year, by far, and again, people may not like this, but we kept them in one place. And we advocated again and again to at least let us maintain them on the beach. It's a little easier to manage for us. Easy is a relative term, but I think it so far has worked out pretty well with that.
Yeah. And it looks like a big crowd.
Yeah, it is.
Posted a picture of it today.
It's thousands of people.
But we're still, crowds are not illegal necessarily, but we're still looking for criminal activity. We're issuing the minor possessions.
But pause with that for a second, because here's what's important. You're not running them into neighborhoods, because a lot of the complaints we got in the Seagrove community, for instance, was that kids were running wild in the community.
As soon as we ran them off the beach.
So, the toughest place to be is if you're a property owner and you're living close to the beach accesses right now. That is where people are really, And we've had some great owners around Dogwood, access to Dogwood, that is, allowed us, the sheriff's office, to park vehicles on their private property. A family there allowed us to use their restrooms out there and listen. So we're trying really hard. We're trying really hard to work and balance that. And some people like it, and some people say, well, you're not doing enough. And so all we can do is the best we can and continue to move forward.
Yeah. When you see other, we did get a question earlier today, like, why not do what Panama City Beach is doing? You're looking at an incorporated area, municipal area, the same as New Smyrna Beach. They enact special event zoning. And that could be done in a city, but there's no incorporated area.
No, that's not the reason. You can still do that here. All the beaches here are private property.
Right.
So you can't enact an ordinance on private property. That's
Sure.
that's the short, easy version. All the beaches in Bay County are renourished. All the beaches in Topsail West are renourished. We never have problems as far as doing with crowds like Topsail West because there's so much beach, right? So much public access beach. There's no very little public access beach east of Topsail.
Yeah.
So, and I don't, by the way, don't ask me what's going on with customer use because it's in court, and literally I don't know at this point. It's going in front of a judge, and so I'm in no position to comment about it.
Okay.
Other than to say we'll follow the law, whatever the law that
Yeah.
ends up being.
Looking for questions coming through. Tammy Fain.
Okay.
Can something be done about car lights being incredibly bright? Some trucks even have 4 lights on both sides. Is it just me?
No, listen, it's a problem for me too. I was trying to flash somebody the other day to get them to take their high beams off, and it was actually their low beams. These LED lights are so bright. Some of them are so incredibly bright. It's difficult because you can't just stop somebody because you think the lumens are too bright in their car. But I don't disagree with you. They're super bright. So it's not just you, but it's a little difficult to do stuff with that.
Okay. I'm kind of scrolling by. If you're making like just comments and not asking a question, I'm gonna skip over it because we're trying to get to questions. Speaking of questions, Riley Peacock has a funny one. Okay. I think it's funny. You may think it's difficult. Would you rather fight 100 rat-sized horses or 1 horse-sized rat?
Dog, I'll take the big one.
You'll take the big one?
Take the big one all day long.
A horse-sized rat?
All day long before I deal with 100 something you can't swat down.
Oh, I don't know if I'd want to deal with a horse-sized rat.
Because I know what I'm dealing with.
Rats are freaking gross. Horses are like
you gotta
cool.
stay up a little later and not try and stump me with some foolishness like that. Come on, kid. Come on. I'm not a rookie.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Debbie Woolley, like clockwork, asked if there was any updates on customer use. You just addressed that.
It's in court. I mean, the county,
court.
They're set for trial, I think, in May. So, again, I have no comment other than to say that we'll see what comes down from this.
Yeah. Son Johnson said, so if you're in a different state but working with Florida ports or Keys, why are people denied shelter or rooms? Having to pay $60 to $100 a day for shelter is hard. I saw this happen with others. Thank you for your hard work.
I'm a little
not
confused.
familiar.
I don't know. I apologize.
familiar.
I'm not familiar. If your ports or Keys, that's so far down south from us. That's probably 13, 14 hours from where I'm at. So there may be some rules there. I'm just not familiar.
Yeah.
And if I'm missing something on that question, feel free to ask back. I don't know.
Carol Ann Dunbar, is there anything in place to charge management companies or owners for after-hours noise complaints?
No, but there's a good idea that could catch on, right? Yeah. Not really. It's a little difficult to do that because they're third parties, but yeah.
Not right now.
Yeah,
There's
right
not.
Now. The problem is you have zero lot lines in a lot of these places. People are right on top of each other, and it's very difficult with noise. There's a lot of different things you have to do with it. So we've tried to work through noise ordinances again and again and again and again, and it's difficult. But we go to them just incessantly during this time of year.
Mm-hmm. Joanna T. I'm going to call you that because I'm gonna just butcher your last name. Please consider dropping the speed limit on Kings Lake North end of the county. Like the rest of the county, it's getting busier and busier and faster drivers often use it as a cut through. more kids live here now too than people on bikes. How do you go about dropping the?
Yeah, you need to reach out to the Board of County Commissioners, email them, and express your concern. That we'll do it as well too, but they are fundamentally in control of the speed limit. So, but we keep a list when you ask us stuff like this, and we kind of shoot it over to them and say, hey, we're getting complaints about the speed being too high on that roadway.
Yeah. Josh Speed says, I have a similar question as the nurse from the hospital. With traffic backing up severely on Mac Bayou Road, we definitely need a traffic unit at South Walton Academy and Mac Bayou for drop-off and dismissal. It's extremely dangerous. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, and again, I agree, but I want this is because we're getting budget times. We're starting to do budget year. I remember, so we've asking for extra there, 3 other places. We just kind of talking here. We're asking for, hey, we need four deputies, new deputies to do X. I don't disagree with you. I just have to get the funding for it, move it forward, and hire the people. But I'm hoping maybe there's some opportunity to reduce the cost by doing this crossing guard. Yeah. And maybe there's an opportunity.
Okay.
Where did he say? Where did he say again? Where was
he said South Walton Academy. I think that's I think it's a private school. He said South Walton Academy and Mac Bayou for drop off and dismissal.
Yeah, that's a small. That's a Montessori school there.
I believe so. Yes.
One of the Montessori schools just reached out to us this week discussing, and I don't want to say which one because I don't remember off the top of my head, about hiring or contracting for a school resource deputy. Mm-hmm. So obviously I can't get it done in the next couple of weeks, but we'll see what's available in the fall.
Okay.
Joseph, I will make a note of that because if you don't mind, Lindsay, make a note of that. So we'll circle back and see where exactly we're talking about to be sure.
Okay. Joseph Harris, what can the sheriff's office do for mail theft? I have video footage of a woman stealing mail from not only me, but all of my next door neighbors. I've reached out to the post office and nothing has been done.
Yeah, you need to call us. If you'll reach out to Lindsay or Corey, send an email with your address and a telephone number. We'll send somebody out there.
Yeah, or call our non-emergency line, Mr. Harris, and ask for a deputy.
Just call in. Actually, that's the easier way. Go ahead and call in. Just ask a deputy to come out there, and we can do something with that.
Okay. Okay. And again, I'm trying to look for questions. Carrie Robinson said it looks like you've lost about 30 to 40 pounds. What are you doing?
I've been sick. Sorry, I wish I had some brilliant answer past
that. What diet
here.
plan are you on? Yeah. Because you look like you're losing weight.
Trust me when I tell you, you don't want the one I'm on. So,
Carolyn Pryor, thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Bob and Sharon Parks.
Okay.
Can we stop this speeding on Walton Road? It's like having a racetrack in Pinehurst Estates. Pinehurst Estates, I think, is that new development, right?
Yeah.
Right across the street
city
from the high school.
Yeah. For sure. It's a city. But yes, the short answer is, we can get some folks over there to start trying to work over there as well.
Okay. Carl Tricoli says, when are we going to eliminate golf carts on 30A? A woman fell out of a golf cart last night, got run over. I consistently see people holding babies, no seatbelts, kids driving. It's so unsafe. And before you answer that question, one of the challenges really is that people come in and they rent them, or they come with the property that they're renting and they're gone in a week.
Yeah, they're gone in a week. So educating them is actually very difficult. But most of them should see these stickers. But here's really his problem's a little bigger than that, what he's saying, which is a lot of them are absolutely perfectly legal on the roadway, but they're a huge problem because they're slowing traffic down and they're jammed in there. I don't think your Board of County Commissioners has any choice, quite frankly. It is Florida law. The only thing they can do is they can change the speed limit on the road. So that's one of the things that can be done. Now, whether or not you want to up the speed limit on 30A enough to do that, you probably don't. But yeah, they don't. They have very little control over this. We probably get that request. Gosh, I would say, multiple times a week.
For Lindsay and I on social media, it's every day, all day.
Yeah, I mean, do something stop to prevent them from being on the roadway. It's a little bit like bicycles. People say, hey, why don't you do something about the bicycles? They need to be on the bike path. It's actually Florida state statute. They're allowed to be on the roadway. And so I passed probably today myself, I would say probably 25, 30 low-speed vehicles on 30A. Every one of them was holding up traffic, right? Although traffic was heavy, but none of them were there illegally. And that's the issue. which is part of the problem. So I mean, I really almost think it's a legislative issue where we're going to have to decide what you want as a community and where. I wish that they had a path for low speed vehicles or golf carts. But I don't know what the board's plan on that is. I haven't heard. They did some kind of mobility study, but I literally have no idea what they decided. And they didn't talk to us about it, so I don't know.
And I think when deputies do see violations, not wearing seatbelts, babies in laps, things like that,
they get lit
they're
up.
They're getting tickets.
Lit up.
And if they're on Highway 98, they're getting towed.
How many we towed last time we checked this? We stopped like 400.
Yeah, and if they're on 98, we tow 100% of them.
We tow them. They get towed.
Yeah.
But the other thing you can't do is cause a wreck trying to turn around and get back to them because traffic is so heavy on 30A.
Yeah. Angie Mueller, what are the plans for traffic lights in Freeport? And I think why she's asking, as a new Freeportian, is that what they call them? Am I a Freeportian? There's just a lot of traffic there, and it's as Freeport grows, it's going to grow. But I think the city would be in charge, and obviously the
DOT.
state.
So you need to call your region DOT office or email your region. We literally have no say in that whatsoever.
Yeah,
none.
Yeah.
We've tried. By the way, we've asked several times to have some input, and that's really told us that was their job.
Yeah. Scott Mislan, our friend Scott from our live PD days, says Van Dyke is looking good.
It's the old man look. It's the old man look.
Yolanda Decker says the squatting trucks are a huge hazard. How can they even see the road? Why is this not illegal? She's talking about the Carolina, what do they call it? The Carolina squat? When the truck's front end is like super high, looks ridiculous.
It's really stupid. There is a bumper height regulation where they can only be so high at certain times. But again, some of that stuff's perfectly legal. Mm-hmm. I understand from your standpoint, the public, where people get so frustrated, they call us and they're mad about certain things. But I always have to say I can't confuse what I don't like with what's illegal, right? Because some of it I don't like, but it's absolutely legal. Whether it should be, that's a whole nother question.
Mm-hmm. As a follow-up, South Walton Academy is actually a school for autistic children.
I wonder how many children are there. That would be an interesting thing to know as well too. Mm-hmm. If that's a private.
Yeah, it's private.
County.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to clarify this. I have really serious heartburn charging a school for an SRD. I do. I have I don't like it, but it's actually the law. And there's many people. I get a lot of complaints. How dare I put a deputy at a Christian school? And I go, because I guess I just dare, but I have to charge. I mean, there's no way around that.
Yeah. Martha Wenger is asking how to get a 4-way stop at J.D. Miller Road in Chat Hawley, and I'm pretty sure that would be the county.
It is 100% the county.
Yeah, to install.
And we are again, Ms. Wenger. We make these notes. And we go back and circle and let the public. We'll tell the county that you have this request, but it really helps if you yourself reach out to them because you're their voters, their constituents, and they want to hear from you. So,
I have an update.
Okay.
On the low-cost spay and neuter.
Okay.
So from Captain Hogaboom.
I knew that she would be on this.
She said that low-cost spay and neuter programs are usually done at veterinary clinics, not necessarily animal shelters. But the animal shelter, the animal services, is working to get to where our shelter can do microchips and rabies events in the future, and hopefully working with vets to do a low-cost spay and neuter program at least once a year. Yeah. And it's kind of one of those things where private businesses usually do low-cost spay and neuter, but there's not a lot of vets in Walton County.
You got to try and hire a vet, by the way, too.
Yeah.
We're grateful for Dr. Blackwood and the time he spent with us. I want to make a point about Captain Hogaboom. It's, what time is it right now? 6 o'clock. She's
working spring break detail.
She's working.
Yeah.
So.
All right. And then Chad Smith is asking, are the deputies at 331 and Business 331 doing details? If so, who's paying for it? And we addressed this earlier, but I think he came on a little bit late.
We're the sheriff's office is covering that.
We are fronting it.
It's just a few $100,000 in overtime we're rolling with right now. It's expensive right now. Trust me, with everybody working.
Carrie Robinson, do you have any plans to add an additional substation on the west end of 98 and the east end of 98 so for presence and availability?
Yeah, long term, those are absolutely go. I mean, the building I'm currently at the South Walton substation filming this right now. This building was designed or planned originally in 1997. A few things have changed since 97. So, we had originally intended to plan to be able to do more of our operations out of this building, but we're struggling to keep up with the growth. We've got to have a new radio system. I think that radio system is going to cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million. That is the priority. These deputies and firefighters, South Walton, North Walton, all these people are struggling to talk. The radio system is starting to collapse on us, and so we are moving as quickly as we can to build a radio system. And I have at least 4 fire stations I'm in the process of trying to build now. So, yes, ma'am, it is on my agenda. We've talked to folks down in around the Watersound Origin area and then the Miramar, but we're in the weeds. We're in the weeds right now.
Yeah. Lucas Sidrani. I'm a small business owner, and we had an event at the beach last night at the Dogwood Beach Access. They were overrun with spring breakers. They spent a ton of money. Is there any recourse or action we can take to help the family recoup their loss? What I think he's talking about is a bonfire. They had basically a bonfire event or a special event down there, and the family who had gotten their permit and all of that, and the business who helped them kind of host that, they got overrun by the
Heathens.
The teenagers.
Heathens.
And he's asking if there's recourse or action we can take to help the family recoup the loss.
I mean, I think that's that's really more of a charitable move from that standpoint. We can certainly try and identify who that was and put that name out there to try and recoup some of that for sure from that standpoint. But as far as from us individually doing that, no, it's be a little difficult.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to go through the conversations.
Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff we hadn't gotten to that is interesting.
Sandy Arnold, is there going to be access from Hammock Bay to Hammock Bay Steamboat Landing on the bike path for golf carts?
I don't know the answer to that, but I bet there is going to be. I bet there's some thought being given to that. I mean, that seems like a really good idea. Now that one's different. That's golf cart, not necessarily low speed vehicles, right? But yes, I have no special knowledge of that, but I can't imagine they wouldn't consider that.
Yeah. Carl Klein, I think that we should have pullover lanes where applicable for golf carts on Highway 30A, just like on a lot of 2-lane roads throughout several states for slower vehicles going uphill.
Okay, so let me pause real quick. Yeah, pause real quick. There are no golf, and I sound like I'm being a broken record, but it's important when we go out there and say this. Golf carts are illegal on 30A. Low speed vehicles are legal. To the average person, they look identical, but I have to use the word separately because there's a different legal requirement. The county commission approved today, I was told, pullover lanes for low-speed vehicles.
Like pads where they could pull over and let cars pass.
Track over, yeah.
Yeah.
They're not required to use those, so you got to understand that the roadway allows anything 35 miles per hour or under allows low-speed vehicles by Florida law. Here's the flaw in that logic. Low-speed vehicles only have to go 25 miles an hour, but 20 minimum or 25. So they're automatically going up to 15 miles below the speed limit. So I agree with you. It's a great thing that I think the board is addressing that now and putting in some but they're not required by law to use them. They should be, but they're not. So
it's kind of like people should be required to chew with their mouth closed.
Yeah, listen, if it was up to me,
and they should know,
you should
right?
have to put your shopping cart.
You should have etiquette.
Just tell you right now, if you don't push your shopping cart back to the place,
that says all I need to know about you.
You violate the social contract.
Yeah, the social contract. D.D. Dahlberg, are there any updates on the watercolor golf cart victim that was struck by a car last night? We did address that earlier. Non-life-threatening injuries. They were transported. Florida Highway Patrol worked the crash. She's going to be fine. And then Jordan is asking, are Walton County deputies allowed to or able to wear their uniforms? Or able to wear on their uniforms the Guardian Angel devices. I've passed many deputies on traffic stops at night that are not very visible due to how dark a lot of 331 from Defuniak to Santa Rosa is. I'm not sure what a Guardian Angel device is.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that either. They have what's called ANSI vest, which have to have a certain level of reflectivity and a certain level of that bright yellow color that you'll see. But it's dark and it's there's no question. more is better. So
Yeah. Scott is asking what your two main areas of concern are aside from the radio network update. What are your two biggest concerns?
for the agencies,
Yeah.
for the agency, I'm gonna call it capital growth.
Uh-huh.
The radio is, again, I know he says separate, but I got to go back because it's $30 million, right? I mean, it's expensive. The second thing is we need to be building this infrastructure for the future. We have at least a fire station in the Pleasant Ridge community needs to be built. A fire station in Mossy Head needs to be built. Absolutely. A fire station at 3280, which is and potentially that one from Windswept. So think about that for a second. Those are what I say, 5 fire stations right off the top of my head. Those are 5 fire stations that have to be built. We just bought basically $1 million fire truck. We had it about 90 days. It took us a year and a half to wait on it. We had it 90 days. We were taking it to a fire off J.W. Hollington Road, and a culvert collapsed, bent the frame on a $1 million fire truck. We will now lose that fire truck and wait a year and a half. So part of my concern is losing apparatus. It's taking 2 years to get pieces out. That's just from the fire.
Patrol cars.
That's just from the fire. That's just from the fire side.
Patrol cars are taking
But
forever.
I think that's one thing people do understand the expense of this stuff. So our ambulances. So going back to the original question, I think those fire stations are and ultimately getting a 9th ambulance up north of the bay, south of the bay, or really just entire county wide. I think after the radio system, you need an emergency operations center in Walton County, and I don't mean I don't mean a small. We've got one that was built. That was the governor's nuclear fallout shelter from like the 50s. This is the 6th fastest growing county in the nation. The county needs to build a new emergency operations center. But in fairness to them, I went and spoke to the board about it probably, 6 months ago. It's bandwidth. They're struggling to build roads, right? And so I look at it differently, but if it was me, I prioritize that emergency operations center next after the radio system. And then, strictly from the sheriff's office standpoint, I would say building a South Walton substation this substation we're in now is not even remotely adequate to manage what we're doing. So I would just simply say radio system, the fire stations that we have to provide life-saving to folks, and a South Walton substation that is adequate to run a couple 100,000 people that we deal with down here.
Yeah.
And those 3.
It's a
And
great
my chances
question,
of getting
Scott.
those, I would say somewhere between. It's difficult. It's going to be difficult. The
Getting
radio's
struck
gonna be-
by lightning and winning the lottery.
Listen, it's expensive, and so anytime you walk up there, and but you got to realize Walton County, kind of interesting. A lot of people don't realize this. We're only 67% of the ad valorem in public safety. 67% of your property taxes funds the Walton County Sheriff's Office. That is one of the lowest in the state of Florida. And I actually heard a commissioner one time, well, there's 67% of the county budget. I said, yeah, and you should be proud of that. 67% of the county's ad valorem, not the county budget. Not the county budget. And that includes all these services.
How high is Okaloosa's ad valorem?
Oh, the sheriff's office and jail is probably 100, 105%. So Bay County's probably close 96, 97%. That's about normal. Holmes County, it's listen, it's what it is in Escambia, ballpark in the 90s. So, but if you don't know any better, you hear that number go 67%. That's actually low. I know the Florida Association of Counties did a study a few years ago, and we spent less ad valorem, percentage of ad valorem, than all but like 6 counties, 7 counties. But it's funny because you have people that actually think it's high, and I'm like,
And what all are we in charge of?
yeah, and that's typically just the jail and the sheriff's law enforcement. We're actually, for 67%, we're actually the jail, fire and ambulance service north of the bay, animal control, all 911 communications, right, for 67%. So it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Pretty good deal.
Pretty good deal.
Yeah, it is.
That's
Yeah, it
an
is.
understatement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I asked one of the folks one time, I said, well, what do you think it should be? What's too much? I said, okay, what should it be? Well, I don't know. It's too much. We can't build roads. Well, maybe you manage your side and I'll manage this side. How about that?
Yeah. Okay. What were we talking about?
I don't know. We spend budgets.
Here we
I
are.
want to talk about something that's kind of interesting that the public, I think, will like, and I think it's a good thing. which is we had this week, the first time I think we've used this, a video 911 call. And you guys are going to do something without this.
Yes, you're ruining it.
Sorry, I won't say anything else about
He's
it.
letting the cat out of the bag.
Okay.
Telecommunicators Week's next week. So I'm keeping it.
You see how that is?
I'm keeping it in my pocket.
Our telecommunicators next week, yeah, they do an awesome job.
I'm keeping it
and
in
you
my
know what?
pocket.
You're going to have a great chance to see that in the next little bit too, right?
Goodness.
I know.
How does he know about that?
The cat.
How does he know about that already?
Stay tuned for later on
good
that.
grief.
So good stuff.
I'm putting it out on Monday.
Yeah, good
Keep
stuff.
your eyes open.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
That's good stuff.
And then,
Good stuff.
Dave Wilson, Texas cop here. I utilize the Guardian Angel device. Well worth it. It's a shoulder light that flashes red and blue, has IR lights, and when I call my takedowns and battle station light. It truly does help when on the side of the road.
Yeah, that's a great.
That's
it's
cool.
Definitely worth looking at for sure. Yeah.
I'm curious how you're trying to recruit staff. It's concerning that your staff is in mandatory overtime with such a high pressure job. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, listen. It's not just us. It's other agencies across the board. We are, we're recruiting everywhere. We are doing everything we can to reach out to people. But here's the thing about the sheriff's office. In any of our district, we don't take just anybody. I will not lower the standards of the sheriff's office to hire somebody. I'm not going to do it. So I would rather work short than have the wrong people, because we start with a philosophy of we're public servants, and. I always joke and say, this is a joke to my friends that are police officers. I was a police officer, so I can say this. I always say, a good police officer solves crime, but a good deputy sheriff solves problems, right? And so sometimes it's tough to get really get the applications in right. If people don't want to be in this line of work. The state is up, as the state's struggling the same thing too. The governor's giving hiring bonuses. We were at one point given a $10,000 hiring bonus, some of it paid by the state of Florida, and we still weren't getting applications. That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah. And we're really, knock
how-
on wood, but we're very fortunate. We're a very safe county to work in.
Well, and not only that, I would add to it, I think one of the biggest problems, and this is true for your school teachers, your firefighters, your construction workers, everybody that is a working middle class jobs, there's no housing.
Yeah.
The rent is so high here, it's astronomical.
Yeah.
It really makes me sick to my stomach the way this rent has jumped up here. There's no place to rent, and there's no. I had one of my firefighters recently trying to get a first time home buyer, and doesn't even qualify for the entry house, which is now duplexes are $300,000 in Freeport. That's madness. That's madness to me.
Yeah.
And don't even think about buying south of the bay. If you're a school teacher or again a construction worker or something, if you don't have some family property, buying something south bay is not attainable. If you're a nurse, whatever. And so I've said to the Board of County Commissioners, we've got to do something.
Yeah.
We've got to do something.
Yeah.
I don't know what we can because it's private, it's private property, private industry, but that's the biggest, I think, impediment to getting people right now. There's no place for them to live. It's over $2,000 a month for a one bedroom at the apartment complex down the street here.
And that's not including utilities.
That is not including utility. You tell me where somebody making $45,000, $50,000 a year can afford that. They can't.
Yeah.
They can't. So.
Samantha Lynn Baker, I see where Crestview, I believe it was, is doing a Narcan administration class. How hard would it be to get one set up in Defuniak?
So.
And I don't think she means for us. I think she means for the public, because there are so many public places to get Narcan.
I'll be more than happy to talk to our EMS chief and see what it would take to get that done. Yeah, we can get something. We can see about trying to get something set up there and see what is available.
Ricky Carnley, and I'm just it's a statement, but I'm repeating it because I think it's worth repeating.
Okay.
Hey y'all, if you know about illegal activity, call it in. Agree. Stop posting on Facebook. Stop posting it on Twitter.
And one of the things that happen, people will post it on Facebook and say, well, you never did anything.
Tag us.
And then tag us. Or they'll say you didn't do anything. You didn't call it in. Posting on Facebook is not reporting.
Call our non-emergency line.
Please. I just put this, I try very hard to call everybody back that calls me that I can. I try diligently. But you have to understand, pretty much every day, about 500 people call the sheriff's office. Pretty much every day. And a large majority said, I'll only talk to the sheriff. And I literally am not in a position to talk to everybody. And they say, well, I voted for him. That's all you have to give people an opportunity to solve the problem. I employ a lot of supervisors in between, right? But anywhere else in the world, you wouldn't, I get it. It's America. We want to go to the top. I got some of that in me too, right? But if you want them to solve the problem, a lot of the stuff I don't know about until I actually have to call their supervisor to find out what's going on, right? And I understand when a crime happens, it's the most important thing in the world to you, and you want service. But the best service is to give them the opportunity, or at least their supervisor, to work on it before you come all the way to the top. And so it just makes it very hard to difficult. That's not me whining. We just go through these lists and call, and and so that can be difficult. It can be difficult
for sure. Lori Walcott, how would an Hurricane Opal-sized evacuation work today?
I'll start losing sleep tonight. You start talking about that. So just so you know, Lori, we at the sheriff's office, we run our own emergency management too. The county has theirs. We have ours. What I would do, just so you know, for those of you who don't know, Opal hit in, I think, 95, 96.
Yes.
And it turned overnight, and it devastated this area. But there was not nearly the construction there was now. Opal now be the stuff of nightmare. Michael, just like Hurricane Michael was for Bay County, it would be exceedingly bad. We would start doing everything we can to push people out 48 hours earlier, 72 hours earlier, and we got to get them to leave. Yeah. But we had plenty of idiots driving around wanting to take pictures of the storm with Michael and endangering people having to go on there. What's my constitutional right to be an idiot? It is. But you're making it difficult for everybody else. Yeah. So to her question, there is what's called for us, it's called a COOP plan, continuity of operations, where we will try to ride out. We rode out Hurricane Michael here. We'll ride out in the substation, but for 72 hours forward, we're going to what's called contraflow, which is where you turn the bridges one way, and I'll turn the traffic one way out of Walton County, right? Yeah. That's a major part of the plan. But it only works if you leave. If you don't leave, it's problematic. The problem is everybody says, well, I paid money and I came there. I'm not going to leave. Let me wait till 24 hours out. And as she pointed out, mentioning Hurricane Opal, it's too late. That's too late because I can't get you out of here.
Yeah.
We're the second slowest evacuation in the state of Florida. It's Monroe County and Walton County. And you say, why? It's the entire south end is covered by bridges. Yeah. And so on this weekend right now, there's about 280,000 people, give or take, in Walton County today. If I tried to get them across all these bridges, and I am required by law for your safety to close these bridges at a certain sustained wind speed, about 40 to 45 miles an hour, depending on the bridge. Once I do that, there's no going back. I'm not going to let you cross that bridge because I can't, because A, you die and go over the side of it, B, you could wreck and close the bridge down entirely where we can't get to it. So it's not just about there. When we ask people to leave at 72 hours, we mean for you to leave. Yeah. And if you ride it out, then you ride it out.
Yeah, and you've got some situations like Ian where it was so unpredictable where it was going to make landfall.
Opal was the worst I've ever seen because of the way it turned overnight. It
just
for those of you,
just
to be clear, it pushed water across Highway 98 into the bay in Miramar. So when people think about this stuff, it is, if you've been here the last 20 years, you haven't seen it. Yeah. But it can absolutely do that to devastating effect.
My dad took the seat last year to work after Hurricane Opal because that was the only way to get to work.
Yeah, take a boat.
Yeah.
That's a good question. That's clearly somebody's lived here.
Yeah. Thanks, Lori.
Clearly somebody's lived here before.
Karen Arch, have you considered a horseback mounted posse in Walton County?
100% I have, and in fact, I just talked to one of our deputies at the rodeo this last week, the Westernwood Ranch Rodeo. Was that last week before? 2 weeks ago.
It was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and what a great job those folks did at Westernwood Ranch, Lindy Wood and those folks. That's a big event. They're going to have to bring in more stadiums, more bleachers to get people, which is awesome, and we're glad to help participate with them. They do wonderful work. But I was talking to one of the deputies about this, Deputy Pruitt, actually, about wanting a mounted posse. And so Lieutenant Wayne Grandstaff, we're going to send him an email when we get off here, because he had actually put together a policy. So maybe in a couple of weeks, we'd like to circle back and get that going again. But yes, we've actually given us that thought. Trustee Lindsay Darby is making a note about that now. So,
great. Great. Ricky Carnley, did we solve the alligator case on Imperial Court? And I think that was
The tote to the tree. The FWC, I think, was
Florida.
working, so
Yeah, Florida Fish and Wildlife was the one conducting
what
that
kind of
investigation.
jackwagon does that, by the way?
You
But
know,
it is Florida. So
I'd like to say something surprised me still, but they don't. Sandy Dooley, are the deputies still having time to drive around Bay Grove Road and keep an eye out on our home while we're not there in this busy time of year?
Yeah,
So Sandy wrote me an email. I forwarded it to dispatch and Lieutenant Cheek, and they scheduled security checks.
yeah, we do the schedule. If
Yep.
you've called in, we maintain those security checks. So yes, if you're doing it, we do it.
And just for your edification, when sheriff says that we have 30 deputies down working spring break, that's in addition to
Whoever
the
else
deputies
working. Oh, no,
that
no,
are
it's way
already
more than- it's
working
way
in the
more than 30.
districts.
Yeah, so in uniform yesterday, for instance, or Saturday, there was probably 65 plus people in uniform working. So you understand that most of our staff works 12-hour shifts in the law enforcement side. And not keep in mind, we also have people in detention. So, typically a quarter of our staff is coming to work, quarter of our staff is at work, quarter of our staff just got off work, and the quarters should have been off the next day. But right now, they're turning and burning some of this stuff. So
Yeah. Lance Fleming, I would like to know why a FedEx driver was allowed to back over my mailbox and leave the scene and never reported it. My neighbor saw them do it, and the next day I called the sheriff's office, and a deputy told me there was nothing they could do. Why is that?
yeah, that's not accurate. There should be something they should be follow up with that. So just shoot us up with an email, and we'll go through and figure out what we can do. Because if it's a FedEx truck and somebody saw it, we can run it down. So shoot an email. We'll send it to his supervisor or her supervisor, as the situation may be, and have them follow up with it. Because we know FedEx trucks know when it might take a minute now. I might say we're going to do that in 2 days, but yeah, there's no reason we couldn't find that out.
Okay. Angie Mueller, I appreciate your standards and the fact that you don't want to hire just anyone, just a working body.
Yeah, for sure. That polygraph, you'd be surprised. That polygraph does wonders for confessions to the soul.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm trying to look.
No. Listen, we don't. Yeah, we always joke about this. Nobody in here is getting paid overtime, and so we would rather do me.
Okay. Jordan is asking, do you possibly know how the dump truck driver from the wreck on 331 and old 331 is doing? That happened about a month ago.
I do not. I'm sorry.
And the lady who was involved in the single vehicle crash on 90 at the New Dollar General, he said, I helped both drivers when I was a passerby, but I was curious how they were doing.
I apologize. I don't know.
And then, wow. Am I caught up? Holy cow.
No. It's Mercatol.
Oh, Elizabeth Parker. She's so sneaky. Are you going to talk about the packages that washed ashore this week?
So a few kilos of cocaine came washing up on shore this week. Not something that happens every day. So obviously, that came from a delivery that did not reach its destination. Mm-hmm. And our folks and the folks at the Drug Enforcement Administration having nice discussions about it and see where we're going from there. The other thing is, I shouldn't have to say this, but I'm going to say it. If a package floats up on the beach, don't open it, because even if you think it's cocaine and maybe you're a cokehead and that's your thing, understand that it's just as likely to have some fentanyl in it and drop you dead. Mm-hmm. So just don't touch it. Don't touch it in any way, shape, or form. Call us.
Just call us.
Just call us. Let's come get it.
And you know what? I learned something new every day when I worked this job. But people were like, that's called a square grouper. And I'm like, no, it's not. Because I thought square grouper was pot. So I don't know. Are they the same? Are they different? I mean, am I in the dark here? But yes, I think that it's also important too to point out that not only do we have narcotics come ashore sometimes, but ordnance, because we're surrounded by bases.
And generally speaking, just don't touch it.
Not to touch it.
Don't touch it.
Yeah.
Don't touch it. The short answer. Don't touch
even
it.
if, They
can't help themselves.
Yeah.
They can't help themselves.
Great. Victoria says she got on late. Is there a recorded or is there a transcript? Once we get offline, you'll be able to go back and watch the entire video in full.
Ooh.
Wow. And we've been on a little over an hour, about an hour and 5 minutes, but we're caught up. I'm going to go through in my brain, and Lindsay, you can bring stuff up if I've missed it. I think we've talked about everything that we had on our list. We talked about constitutional carry. We've talked about the low-speed vehicle crash. You know what we haven't talked about? We had a deputy who was hit on the bridge the other night. Right. Talk about the move over law and what that means, because there's two parts to it.
Yeah, so there was a deputy struck on the bridge the other night. We were very. This is the second time in the last 40 days, because Deputy Tector was hit.
Yeah.
On Chat Holly Road.
Yeah, out of his vehicle. His body was hit.
Yeah, so he was actually physically hit as well. The law is this: you need to move over if possible, and if not, you need to slow down. Right, so
20 miles an hour under the posted
speed limit. So while one deputy was stopping a speeder going 102 miles an hour
on the bridge,
the other got out with a wreck. While they were out with a wreck, because somebody was watching, not paying attention, then a third person hit our deputy's vehicle. And so we're just very lucky. But this is the second time in, again, probably 30 days that a deputy, either in his vehicle or his person has been struck. Which is
Deputy
madness.
Butler in January was working a crash. A gentleman hit a deer.
Yeah, that's right.
And her car was parked and was rear-ended
Exactly
with the lights on. So,
which is, by the way, when a deputy stops you, why they don't like to stand in front of the vehicles, because drunks love the back of lighted vehicles, and that's what they hit. So
can we talk a little bit about? And I had some people ask. We have this notion like, hey, we want you to pull more cars over on the bridge.
Right.
The bridge is dangerous. They try to do that strategically, so that they don't put themselves and the driver in a dangerous situation.
We try to let them get off the bridge. Sometimes we don't stop them. Sometimes they're off the bridge because it's such a tight margin in there. So anytime we can, but
in that situation,
we didn't have a choice.
Correct.
Because 100 and something miles an hour, they got to be stopped then.
Yeah. Mary White, could we get a sheriff deputy at Morrison Springs on the weekend? There's a lot of parties and extremely loud music in the parking lot.
You know what? We used to have a deputy there pretty regularly because it was getting out of hand, and the board asked us to place somebody there. That bears looking at again. So we're going to make a note about that. We'll get through this next week and see if we can go down and get control of that. We used to have a camera up there, and I think what's happened now is because of some connectivity issues, we weren't doing that. It wasn't viewing that like we used to be able to. But Lindsay's got a note on that. That's actually a really good suggestion. So I'll see if I can get somebody down there.
Yeah. Larry Mitchell, thank you for your hard work. I'd like to bring your attention on Mossy Head Main Street. The traffic is heavy for a residential street. FedEx and everyday travelers speed on a regular basis. There is a stop sign at Mossy Head Main and Stewart Circle that hardly anyone stops at, continually gets run. I understand there can't be a deputy there all the time, but 6:30 to 8 a.m. and about 3 p.m. until around 6, I'd just like to see a larger presence around those times.
I love what he did because he gave time frames, which is important. So we'll make another. Lieutenant James Pittman is your district lieutenant. Yeah. And he's actually having to work tonight as well too. So we'll get some folks out there.
Yeah. Jeremy Tramwell is asking if they can get a deputy at the school zone on Highway 90 in Mossy Head, because nobody slows down at the school zone. And then Justin Jackson is asking, earlier today I was in Seaside. I had an issue trying to unload passengers. What's your suggestion if I cannot pull out of the roadway in Seaside? Because they've got the residential streets blocked off.
Yeah, and his question was
he's trying to unload passengers as like a Lyft driver or an Uber driver. What's your suggestion if I can't pull off the roadway?
I'm gonna hate this because you're not gonna like what I'm gonna say, and you're asking a very legitimate question. What I would say is you're gonna have to pull down until you find a place to pull off, because you're taking on the liability of letting them out in the roadway. And so I can't tell you, hey, let them out in the road where you're at. And I understand what you're saying. I understand that's a tough situation. And I'm 100% in favor of having Lyft and Uber. I'm hoping that these pull-off things are being the county just approved them. So maybe that'll be where you want to do that for sure in the future. So and I hate to leave you hanging like that, but your best suggestion is you're going to have to go down until you find something where you can pull over. But as soon as they get those pullover lanes, we're in business. You'll be in business. That'll help a lot.
Yeah.
But that's a very fair question on their part. I mean, I get it. I understand it's a problem.
Yeah. Carrie's asking, when do we plan to do staging roadblocks and check, do license and insurance and DUI checks?
So we run DUI checks, at different times, usually once or twice a year. But in this level of traffic right now, doing that, the accidents we would cause doing this right now outweighs the potential there. So we have to kind of do that strategically, where there's a flow that makes sense. But we're required by law to advertise them in the newspaper and let people know and all that stuff before we do them. But there's zero way to do it right now. This kind of heavy.
Yeah.
I don't have the staffing for that right now.
Yeah.
So we'd have to wait till we're not on mandatory overtime and everybody's out. So at some point, a little bit later in the year.
Sandy Dooley's asking, do I need to call the sheriff's office to get on a list so they'll check our house every 30 days? I think that the scheduled security checks are for 2 weeks at a time.
Yeah, you'll just have to look. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. If you send me an email, Sandy, I'd be happy to look into that for you and get you a straight answer. Larry Mitchell says thank you. And then Linda Stubbs is asking what we can do to slow down traffic on 90. It's become extremely dangerous, similar to the question about the school zone on 90.
Yeah, again, we're going to go back and try and expand our traffic unit. I mean, I will tell you that. We're going to ask TDC to help fund that. A certain amount of TDC funds, I think they took in $50 million last year. So certainly, they have been open and willing, and we'll see about trying to expand that.
Yeah.
But I got to have people apply too, so a little bit of balance.
Victoria Lee, has there been any collaboration with New Orleans Police or New York Police Department to manage crowd control to address issues facing 30A?
No, I think we do a better job than they do, quite frankly, though, if I'm being honest. Because you got to remember, these crowds are 15, 16-year-old children, not adults, so there's a different rules of engagement when you deal with children. They're also not rioting, right? So, but this year we saw a significant improvement by being in a central area. And so a lot of people see a big crowd and they don't like the crowd, but that's actually, as long as the crowd's manageable, that actually is easier for us than running children into the neighborhood, because again, they are not adults, and that's the issue. So it's a little bit different. The New York and places, big cities like that have to do it. They tend to have to deal with event crowds, right?
Violent riot.
Or even if
crowds.
they don't, they have events that last a finite period of time, right? So I'm going to have a protest. I'm going to have a walk. I'm going to have a march. I'm going to have a community event for the day. What they don't have is 30 days, 60 days of the same thing. That's what makes this different. So it's just a little bit different for us because it's over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
If it was just like a festival, 2 days, a day or three, we would handle it. We would do it much more like they did it, quite frankly. So.
Yeah. Justin Jackson said, thank you from Ohana Limousine. I appreciate your answer. That's what I will pass along to my staff.
Yes, sir.
We are caught up on questions.
Awesome.
I think we've covered our talking points for the most part. We've been on an hour and 15 minutes. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No. I mean, we appreciate everybody's patience. So many people working with us over the spring break time. It is busy time. We're about to get through Atlanta week this next week. We've got several big community events coming up after that, and then we'll be in a Memorial Day in summer. But just bear with us, a little bit of patience. We're doing the best we can to get out there and get going, and we appreciate you guys' support. So we'll see you in about 2 weeks, give or take. And we'll go from there. Appreciate it.